In this segment, we're going to be talking about the Equalities Act in action, or the Equality Act actually in action, and some of its implications and how it's been working and affecting us in real life. Now, the purpose of the Equality Act, essentially, according to the government, is to prohibit direct and indirect indiscrimination. And if you're wondering what indirect discrimination means, in practice, it means that where the outcomes differ by different protected groups, that is indirect indiscrimination. And the case law has been changing on this in a way that's been quite dangerous, I think, pushing towards the imposition of absolute equality regardless of merit, qualifications, or anything as mundane as passing exams or doing harder work. So let's sort of go into this a little bit. The Act applies to pretty much every aspect of life in Britain. So it includes clubs and associations, it includes work, it includes the government. The government is given, the whole civil service is given a statutory responsibility to make sure that inequality in all forms is completely eliminated. And the standard against which this is measured is how are white British people performing.
We've been complaining about what appears to be the intentional degradation of our educational system for years now. This is why we have created courses.lotuseaters.com, a platform on which we are now offering courses which are tailor-made to reconstruct the education that has been denied to us. I want to be clear, these are not YouTube videos. They are university-level lectures and coursework with a test at the end to which you will have to apply yourself. Courses.lotuseaters.com. We will see you there.
So if there's if you say, for example, that Britain is not structurally racist because different kinds of Asian groups outperform white British, that's not considered acceptable. The metric, and you can see that from some of the consultations that the government is undergoing, the metric is how are white British people performing.
So this effectively acts, if I could borrow a term from 2015 feminism, as a glass ceiling for white people in our, native British people in our own country, effectively.
If you were to put hydraulics on the ceiling and get it to press everybody downwards, then yes, that would be correct.
Yeah, it's even worse than that. It's like
it's not a ceiling. It's more of a compression effect.
It's like a sort of jungle temple trap style thing.
Yeah. So here you see explained in government documents that are on the Parliament's website, trying to sort of show what this act is all about. Eliminate discrimination, harassment, victimization, and any other conduct that is prohibited by the act. Victimization. Who knows what that means? And what it means for one individual will differ from what it means for another.
Very subjective.
Very subjective. What it means for one group will differ completely to another. Advance equality of opportunity between persons who share a relevant protected characteristic and persons who don't. The persons who don't, in case you're wondering, is white men. Everybody else is considered as having a protected characteristic. So being a woman is a protected characteristic. Being not straight is a protected characteristic. Being of a different ethnicity, protected. Having a disability, protected. So the way that this works is really highly selective and is not informed really by an objective and comprehensive look at the evidence. It's informed fundamentally by, we've picked on a group, we want to raise everybody else's level to them or lower them to everybody else's level.
Well, it's similar to sort of, I hate to bring it up because it's beating a dead horse, but it's very similar to how communism operates, isn't it? In that rather than raising everyone's standard of living to, the standards of capitalism, it lowered them all so they were equally impoverished.
Leveling down.
Yes.
And hold on, this one here is my favorite. One of the objectives is foster good relations between persons who share a relevant protected characteristics and persons who don't.
Yep. Why is that?
As in, I will kick you and you will smile.
This violates freedom of assembly. It tells you need to engage in relations that are good, and we
get
are
the
the
judge.
arbiters of what's a good relation.
Exactly. So you and I might have what I think is a good relation. You think differently. You could sue me.
But for us, isn't it the case that they want to be left
minority.
alone?
I'm an ethnic minority. Say again?
I thought the people wanted to be left alone.
No, absolutely not. They want to get in your face, and you have to smile and you have to like it.
This is obviously not
It's
the role.
not about leaving anybody alone. It's absolutely not.
It's not the role of government to be telling people who they should and shouldn't be affiliating with. You know, it's like good relations.
I'm
I'll
sorry,
hate who
you're
I like.
displaying bad relations, and therefore you could be sued under the Act.
So, I've thought of a loophole.
Go on.
So, say you hypothetically get accused of racism, and in this line of work, it's not so difficult to imagine.
No.
Then you could say, well, actually, I still have good relations with the person. I'm just, I'm just good-heartedly accusing them of being moral.
Yeah, but
degenerate.
they won't accept this. 'Cause you could say I have lesbian friends, but they're fine with me, but the state doesn't want them to be fine with me.
State is very concerned about lesbians hating Stelios.
Yeah, they say, well, probably it's more to do with the lesbians.
So there's a duty for public authorities, all of them, to have due regard for eliminating discrimination, harassment, ensuring equality, etc. And according to case law, according to the Court of Appeals, it is the intention of Parliament these considerations are now to be placed at the center of formulation of policy by all public authorities, side by side with all other pressing circumstances. So
that's absurd that that's written in that way as well. That's
exactly
so strong.
Exactly. So if your concern is flooding, fighting fire, policing, the safety of children, healthcare, equality is equal to those statutory duties.
That's absolute nonsense.
If not exceeds it, right?
In practice, it exceeds it. Mm-hmm. In practice, because of the risk of litigation, nobody can sue you for failing to clean the gutters and causing a flood. But you can be sued, as we are going to discuss in a moment, over this stuff. And the lawsuits are simply absurd.
Would I be able to say something ever so quick before we get going?
Please.
This sort of legislation, I've come to realise over the years, has it completely on its head. I've come to the opinion that this might be controversial, I don't know, that if a nation doesn't discriminate in favour of its dominant or native population, then it will slowly become eroded over time and then cease to be a nation. You've seen this throughout all of human history as far as I'm concerned, and although the sort of fair play liberal in me that still exists sort of feels like that's a sort of dirty thing to do, at the same time, if it's for the survival of my peoples, then it's a necessary evil.
Well, let me add on to that. The court in question, the Court of Appeal continues, the judge continues, advanced consideration has to be given to these issues. They have to be an integral part of the mechanisms of government. There is a need for a conscious approach, and the duty must be exercised in substance, with rigor and with an open mind. So there is...
They're students of irony, are they?
I know. A decision maker is likely to be in difficulties if his or her subsequent decision is challenged. So
and what nonsense is this?
I know, but this is
paternalism of the worst sort.
A Court of Appeal case.
Yeah.
This isn't some junior tribunal judge who's sort of opining. This is coming from the highest legal authorities in the United Kingdom. And it's being imposed in this way. And it's an ideological test. Absolutely. It's not a test of merit, a test of what did you do right, what did you do wrong. No, it's a complete ideological test.
And it's also turning what used to be our values on their head as well, because in the 19th century, we had the right idea of, if you feel like you've been hard done by and things are unequal and you see people getting ahead, well, pull yourself up by your bootstraps and do something about it.
Yes.
Stop whinging, actually make your life better.
Yep. Now, the minister in charge of race and ethnic relations and questions of race and ethnicity is this lady here, Seema Malhotra. And during Brexit, her huge concern was to write to Theresa May and complain that Britain's delegation to negotiate Brexit had only 11% women, whereas the EU's delegation had 50% women. This was her take on Brexit, that the British delegation was bad because it didn't have enough women in it.
I think basically all this woke stuff comes with the tyranny of the minority, because we have all sorts of politicians or politician-adjacent people who are trying to make a calculation about the electorate, and they say, well, I will appeal to group X, Y, or Z.
Yep.
And it's nonsense.
And in terms of favoring your own people over strangers, this particular minister, who's also the migration minister, had said that she would never report an illegal migrant and that she wouldn't do anything about illegal migration. She's given the portfolio of migration, by the way. So you can...
If it were up to me, I would take away her citizenship, kick her out of Parliament and deport her for that. That's, as far as I'm concerned, treasonous.
Yep.
Also, it suggests that somehow being deported is the greatest crime of all, which it isn't.
You've got to go back to where you grew up. Oh.
Yeah, it's there's a certain absurdity to the whole discourse about this stuff, and nothing is more absurd than having somebody who is a foreigner in charge of another country's international relations and migration policy. Now, I wanted to highlight a couple of cases that sort of emanate from this issue. We have here on this website a case where a woman takes her employer to court because after maternity leave, she wanted to be able to work from home. Her employer said, no, come on, you can't work from home. You have to show up in the office. This was found to be a discrimination case, and she successfully sued, and she ended up receiving an award from the tribunal on the back of this.
So I've actually heard stuff from the sort of non-political professional world that when people are basically being made to leave a job,
right,
it's very common now to say that you're being racist to me. And normally a company will just say, okay, we can't be bothered with the suit. We'll pay you some money to shut up, basically.
Exactly.
And people have cottoned on to this. And it's actually really widespread, but no one's really talking about it.
It's racism, it's harassment, it's one thing or the other. People will see how the law works, and employers will calculate often that it's cheaper to pay now a small amount than to take the risk of going to court and pay a stupendous amount.
It all boils down
because,
to...
because the law and the judiciary are all wired to see discrimination everywhere. And I just wanted to follow up on that. You had the previous case that I mentioned where a woman sued because she was told to come back and work from the office, and she said, no. There was a different story. There was a policewoman who was pregnant. The police did what they're meant to do, which is to conduct some kind of risk assessment, and said you can't be out pregnant on the street trying to tackle dangerous criminals. What we want you to do is to go to a desk-based job where you were in the crime management hub, whatever that is. I hope it's not them managing crime, but whatever that is. But it's essentially a desk job where she does research and supports police for the duration of her pregnancy. The courts then found that this is sex discrimination.
It's the most reasonable thing in the world.
So think about it this way. If she had been told to continue with her duties, and God forbid she had lost her baby, she would have had grounds to sue on sex discrimination. If she was protected and told to get off the street for your own safety, you're pregnant, if some random criminal tries to tackle you, or you have to fight somebody during an arrest, you'll be put at risk. That's also sex discrimination.
But
So
she's not
damned
lost
if
her
you do,
job.
damned if you don't. No.
Yeah, she's just changed role.
She apparently found a doctor who told her that she was fit to carry out her regular role. I don't know how she did that. Because honestly, like, there's a reason why society is geared towards the protection of pregnant women, and that's exactly how it should be. She found a doctor that said, she didn't need that protection, and then she was able to use that to file a suit saying, no, she needed it. And you had a previous case where being told, come and work from the office, that's also discrimination. So essentially, it's a position where anything you do can be construed as discrimination. And just to add insult to injury or salt to the wounds, I don't know what it is, there was another case where a lady sued Starbucks because her job was to enter information into a computer. She was doing it incorrectly. They thought it was fraud. She said, no, I'm dyslexic.
What a weird
So
explanation.
they force.
Starbucks to pay
It's
her.
okay. It's just it's
so-
all nonsense. All of this
Yeah.
creates a framework that is entirely arbitrary in a sense. I know we have
Well,
sometimes.
it's all resource extraction, basically. This is my iron law of politics, that most of it is just resource extraction and everything else is just window dressing.
You're going to love this one.
Oh, wonderful.
Inco
A
punk.
guy walks into
A
a
bar.
brewery. A guy walks into a bar,
Setting up for a joke here.
a brewery. They have a special offer. You can buy this bottle of pink IPA, speaking to your IPA issue, for £1 less if you're a woman. He says, I want to buy it for £1 less. They say, no, you're a man. Then he says, actually, I identify as a woman. And they were like, you know what? Fine. Here you go. You don't have to pay the full price. Pay just £4. He then sues anyway and gets £1,000 for sex discrimination because the judge believed that he must have felt humiliated by saying that he identifies as a woman. So the amount of...
I respect this one, actually.
I mean,
There's a certain amount of just
there's a
trolling
commitment
them.
to scamming and trolling, yes.
I mean, you should be punished if you're doing this sort of thing anyway. Like, oh, we're going to sell stuff to women for a different price. Like, really?
Look, if you want to do a promotion, do a promotion. If a bar has a policy that women pay less of a cover charge or no cover charge, I don't care. It doesn't bother me. But just the sort of random gratuitousness of it. They tried to enforce their policy. He said no. Then he said, well, I identify as a woman. Then that wasn't good enough and he still sued them anyway. It's just damned if you do, damned if you don't. And you see this repeating across the board, and you see that it is having a very real impact on businesses. So here we have next a retail chain, which, anyway, it's a retail chain. They got sued because their retail staff, who stand in air-conditioned rooms and say, would you like to try this on? Were getting paid less than their warehouse staff. Now, the retail staff are 70-something% women. The warehouse staff are 47% women. So almost half. The warehouse job is backbreaking, much more demanding. You're working with machinery. You're at much higher risk of injury. You're probably not working in air conditioning.
There's
Because
also probably the fact that if you're in a warehouse, you probably need things like heavy machinery qualifications. Like to operate a forklift, for example, you need a qualification to do that.
Yep.
Whereas to work in Next, you don't need any qualifications. In fact, it's probably helpful.
So, Next said we were just paying market rates. The tribunal said that the efforts were that their pay policy was driven by an effort to cut costs and boost profits, and that there was no intent to discriminate, and that there was no direct discrimination. There was no conscious or subconscious gender influence in the way Next set pay rates. This is read, you would read that and you would assume that, oh, the tribunal ruled for them then. But no.
I like the idea that the board of directors at Next are just like, well, we could make more money, but we're going to pay men more because we just hate women so much that we're going to discriminate against them and take money out of our own pockets.
Yep. So the retailer failed to demonstrate that lower pay was not the result of discrimination. So proving intent in any court proceeding is extremely difficult. What do you think? How can I prove what you think? They found no evidence of intent for discrimination. However, they shifted the burden of proof from the claimant to the subject of the lawsuit. So you have to prove that you didn't intend to discriminate.
That's illogical, and that's why I absolutely resent irrationality in politics in this case.
And this is nothing but irrationality. Listen to the rest of the judgment. For market forces to be a trump card in this way, as in for you to operate purely based on your fiduciary responsibility to shareholders, as a good capitalist, for market forces to be a trump card in this way would defeat the objective of the legislation, being the Equality Act 2010. Lower pay in particular sectors due to indirectly discriminatory practices could then be lawfully sustained in perpetuity, as in, we will never arrive to the utopia where everybody is equal in every way.
Nor is it desirable.
Yeah, okay. Congratulations. We've reached the maturity of a 4-year-old.
Yeah, exactly. They continue, there must be usually a more compelling business reason for such a rate. What's a more compelling business reason than profit maximization?
Social responsibility.
Social responsibility,
Yes,
but it's not a business reason.
BlackRock will invest a lot of money in you if you...
It's absolute lunacy. It's absolute unapologetic lunacy. They're suing Tesco as well for the same exact reason. They're suing Asda, Morrison's, the Co-op. You should actually,
because
if you want to sue someone, this is the company that's suing. Day.
Because my local Tesco is staffed entirely by Indians, and I feel like I'm not represented. I want someone who is English in Tesco, please.
And did they also call you a woman? That's extra £1,000.
Not yet, but I'm sure they've thought about it.
So this is the law firm that's responsible for the string of lawsuits against different companies. Their motto is fighting injustice and what have you. And then you see, and they have a diversity problem.
It's a very select group of people.
This is the first page of their partners. And to quote Hamza Yusuf, they're all white. Second page.
I mean, you could have showed me these faces in a lineup and I could have told you their profession. I've been at this so long now, I can just tell.
Third page, it goes on. They're mostly... they have their own diversity problem, and I wonder if we can't find somebody to sue them.
I can tell you something out of experience from the university world. Most people are white, and the anti-whiteness narrative within the university and the woke narrative within the university is a game that many whites are playing against other whites, especially when they can't compete against them on fair grounds. So if I'm doing kick-ass research, but the other person is just someone who understands is a complete mediocrity and can't excel on it, they're going to become representatives of whatever, and they're going to get ahead.
They will basically... So really rubbish aspiring middle managers are probably the first people in a big company to put pronouns in their bio when this whole thing kicks off, because they see that this is the way forward. And you therefore signal your absolute loyalty to the regime. And by doing that, you signal that you're not a threat, and that if HR asks you to do certain things with pay and to make sure that they're meeting their quotas, you will comply, because you don't have a conscience. So this essentially rewards really the worst people in the world. And even with all of this, The Guardian is complaining that only a third of recommendations to tackle endemic racism in the UK are implemented. Now again, I don't understand how racism is endemic when it is white British boys who are the least likely to go to university, and when it is really the most equal society I've ever been to as a Middle Easterner.
I think it's also worth pointing out that if this society were run for white men, why would we be the most likely to contribute to the state and the least likely to take out of it?
Yep.
The most likely to end our own lives, the most likely to be homeless.
Yep.
The list goes on. If things are run for us, why would we run it this way?
Yeah.
We're exploiting ourselves then, aren't we?
Exactly. So The Guardian wanted to celebrate the 5-year anniversary of the Black Lives Matter protest and caused by the fentanyl death of George Floyd. They are saying that there have been 12 reports into racial inequalities since 1981. There have been 600 recommendations, and only 200 recommendations have been acted upon, fully acted upon. Meaning that the other 400 could be partially or not, or they could just be so fanciful that even Keir Starmer and Cameron and others couldn't act on them.
They could also be contradictory as well.
So they're demanding more. They're looking at all of this and they're saying, actually, this isn't enough. We demand more. And we're beginning to see this more. Now, Royal Parks, which is responsible for cleaning which is responsible for the care of the Royal Parks in London, they're facing a lawsuit because toilet cleaners that are contracted through a private company are getting less money than cleaners who are fully employed by Royal Parks.
Welcome to the economy.
Exactly.
How it works.
Exactly. Which means that, say, Deliveroo drivers could sue for being paid less than actual restaurant workers. You know? I mean, the reasoning behind these cases is that the court comes out and says, we view this work as having equal value. Or similar value. Similar value and equal value are ridiculously subjective, ridiculously open-ended. And the fact that they've submitted to those lawsuits are causing everybody else to start suing. And incidentally, this is the reason why Birmingham has gone bankrupt. It was over this kind of issue. It's become so insane. It has been so insane for so long. I mean, this is an article from 6 years ago, that 50 civil servants said that the Home Office was discriminating against them. Why? Because they made them undertake a core skills assessment. And black candidates that took this test passed at 40% the rate of whites. It's a test. The test doesn't know your race. But the difference in outcome was enough for the Home Office to decide, you know what, or for the civil service to decide, you know what, we don't care. We're just going to give you £1 million, go away.
It's so frustrating on multiple levels. On the one hand, it's frustrating that it's another case of black people not realising that the problem is with them and not the world. And the second thing is that they're just more money is being extracted from the taxpayer for such ridiculous reasons. I would be happy if it's just like every single person is white British, suck it up and get used to it.
But there is an extra thing to it, because I'm of the opinion that a lot of problems we're facing nowadays are basically concealed communist problems. A lot of right-wingers are saying the otherwise, and are saying, no, it's not just communists, you're just typical anti-communist propaganda, let's do that. That's nonsense. What they're doing is they're pushing forward a radical egalitarianism, and they're saying so long as this equality is being achieved, people aren't free, they're living in just circumstances. So all of it is just, I'm pushing a radical egalitarianism, which incidentally is helpful for me politically. That's in the mindset of the...
But of course, equality and egalitarianism is the enemy of exceptionalism, and if we want to be an exceptional country again, we've got to be unequal. And actually, inequality is desirable because it means that people are actually achieving something rather than living in complete squalor. Then everyone will be equal.
Yep. So here you see this headline from the Guardian. Who else? Absolutely shameful. Ethnicity pay gap persists. Okay, how big is it really? Among UK-born workers, black employees had the biggest pay gap, earning 5.6% less than white employees. All this over 5%.
It's maddening that someone from Central Africa, they can't see that them coming from there to Britain, they're not going to be immediately on the same pay scale as them. Madness.
I will say, though, I really think that to a very large extent this results from ecophobia. And it is people who are from within England who are frequently saying, these are the leftists, basically. Mm-hmm. These are the arguments you need to give forward. These are the arguments I'm going to make for you, and I'm going to represent you. So just kick up a fuss.
As we saw with the Lay law firm, who are, they all look very European, mm-hmm. and they're the ones who are leading the charge on these lawsuits. And then the report continues, it's absolutely shameful that there's this pay gap. And then it says, actually, the other ethnic group, which includes Arab and other ethnicities, earned 3.8% more than their white peers. So that they see this, it in no way contradicts their narrative. They don't pause. They don't care. It's racism, racism, racism. It's shameful. Everybody must be made to receive equal pay to white men, unless, however, they are paid more than white men, in which case it's okay, and we'll bury it near the bottom of the article and we won't even try to address it.
So, in effect, this legislation is just a way of crushing us?
More or less. It's targeted against you, clearly. A government spokesperson said that they would continue to support employers in measuring pay gaps and identify examples of good practice. This is part of delivering our Inclusive Britain Action Plan to tackle unjust disparities in employment, education, health, and criminal justice. I don't know, if some racial groups are getting paid more than white men, that is clearly not discrimination. But the narrative is that this is all discrimination and you must bend the knee.
But also, some people are so statist in their mindset and they absolutely hate the idea of impersonal distribution.
Yep.
And non-centrally planned economic actions.
Absolutely.
Well, it's sort of racism of the gaps, isn't it? In that when they don't understand how something works, they just presume the mechanism is racism.
Yes.
They actually interrogate the other factors, such as
pretty much
maybe there's a difference in qualification, maybe it helps if you're fluent in English, having grown up here. That sort of helps in most lines of work, doesn't it?
It's absolutely insane. And then a Ms. Bigham, who was responsible for this report, same last name as a nice lady called Shamima Bigham, said the ethnicity gap could not be closed without entrenched structural inequalities being tackled. And you see here that the government is proposing a bill, it's consulting on this bill. They want to add to the Equality Act with a race and disability element. I went through the time to actually look at the questionnaire and see what it's all about. It's all about whether or not they should make companies that have more than 250 people report a breakdown of their ethnicity and a breakdown of pay by ethnicity so that it becomes easier for them to sue. The idea is to impose the reporting requirement. It's all framed in comparison to white men. You can go through, it's really not hard to find. Equality, Race and Disability Bill. Go check it out. Look at the consultation. Please fill it in and add in a few insults if you want. And you see that this is all targeted in a very particular way, intended to make it easier to sue more companies, to make sure that the janitor is getting paid almost as much as the CEO. If this isn't communism, I don't know what is.
If you would like to watch the full uncut version that is also uncensored, head on over to lotuseaters.com to find out more.